Funky Politics.
When you look at the issues placed before us, it's really clear that he committed a crime. He was wrong. I just don't know how any senator that has been sitting in that room and listening to the arguments of the Democratic Party, I don't know how anyone could vote otherwise.
Into the dragon, as I start the rain, attack the thing and the rappers on the bandwagon. Feel the fury of a renegade, with men are slaves, so send the aid, cause I penetrate. Being a best up, I dress up, so don't even mess up.
You are listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kudzukian Network. I am DC's Jen. Little John, what's up, Jen?
What's happening, DC?
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
You're looking well. You're
Thank
looking
you.
mighty good.
I appreciate that.
Well, I tell you don't look like what you've been through, baby. You don't look like what you've been through.
I do not look like what I've been
That's
through.
What I'm talking about.
Praise God.
Lee Eric. But boy, I tell you, I'm loving that purple shirt, Doc. How you doing, Lee?
What's happening, brother?
What?
What's going on, Baba?
It's only my, but I'm going to tell you, don't wear that purple shirt here no more. Okay,
No,
Doc?
no. Dress like the man you want to be, not the man you are.
Oh, whatever the hell. Doc Ward. Doc, what's up, baby?
It's the Doc, your resident president, the CEO of WOA, the chairman of the board, B-O-R-E-D. And you know why I say that?
No, why you say
Because
that?
I am bored with this single news coverage that we're getting right now.
It's not single, man. Come on, it's important, Doc.
I want to hear all about the impeachment. I want to get all into it. But I'm going to tell you right now, man, there are so many other things. All politics are local.
Yes, sir.
And there's so many other things that are going on in our country and in our nation that we are really not fleshing out right now because we're caught up in impeachment. You know what I'm saying?
It's important, though. It's important.
It's very important.
That the folks know exactly what the hell is going on, Jen.
But we got to be able to walk and chew gum. Tell us what's going on.
Ain't nobody walking up in the Senate right now. They all just sitting there.
Now, they are eating candy.
Eating candy.
They're drinking water and milk. They can only have water and milk.
Can you think about the milk?
Yeah.
Milk is a choice.
Reportedly, it
I don't
does the
understand
body
it.
good.
That's just nasty.
I heard that somewhere.
You know, enough milk, enough water, you're going to have a whole lot of problems.
A bunch of older men sitting there drinking warm milk.
Can you imagine that? You got these 70-plus
Saturday
men. Well, we're not going to talk. Come on, let's be fair to them.
Very funky politics, Bray.
We need to get into impeachment, y'all. We're going to talk about that as we get into the show, right? We got some stuff dedicated to the impeachment proceedings that's going to blow your freaking mind up out of funky politics, number one, right?
We would like that.
A couple other things. Super Bowl Sunday. The Super Bowl's been set. Doc, who do you have, man? I know you're a Cowboys fan, ain't you?
Never that.
I'm sorry.
Never that. I'm a fan of the Houston Texans. And that's a long story. I'm not going to even get into it on this show.
They choked.
I'm there. No, they didn't choke. I mean, it's got beat by a better team. But I will say, I would call this not the Super Bowl, but more like the Meh Bowl, because it's like meh. You know, I ain't 49ers, the red and gold nation, 49ers, Chiefs, whoever wins.
Jen, what you got? What you got? This Super Bowl thing out here. What's up?
So, you know, I was a Jerry Rice fan. And so, you know, I kind of have a affinity for the 49ers. So I'm going to roll with them.
You got an affinity for Mississippi dudes, huh?
I mean, you know, Jerry Rice, I used to work for Nike. And, of course, he has a building on site, on campus. And it's like, it's amazing to walk through there and you see Mississippi Valley State. There's like a little case full of all of his memorabilia.
Like a shrine almost, right?
And then you've got like every team he played for, you know, and it's wonderful. And I mean, he went to an HBCU. He was just a solid dude. He was one of my favorite dudes.
Shout out to HBCUs.
Absolutely.
Especially shout out to Mississippi Valley State University.
Devils.
Absolutely.
What?
Go
Lee Eric.
Yes, sir.
Who is your choice on this deal here?
I am going for the Rotel dip. I'll be checking out the Rotel dip and the meatballs at the Super Bowl party. I don't care who wins, man. I'm there for the commercials.
Do you put sausage in the Rotel dip, or do you go without it?
That is a travesty, a sham, and a mockery, and nobody should ever do it. I'm offended that you brought it up.
But you don't put sausage in the Rotel?
No, turkey.
No.
What? Just straight cheese?
Beef or turkey?
You put some meat in there.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. Do you put it in there? Right. Some people don't.
Yeah, if it ain't got that in there, it's just Velveeta.
Thank you. I was getting ready to say.
It's just warm cheese.
That's like that warm milk. That's just nasty.
That's going to stop you up too.
That's just nasty.
Hey, look, man, Davos, Switzerland. Just recently, we had 45. Our president had an opportunity to go to Switzerland. And when you have the head of the what we all consider the free world, which is the presidency of these United States, whether it's Donald Trump or Obama or George Bush, this man hit the ground running over there, right?
He hit the ground.
They were waiting.
He hit the ground.
Literally waiting to check this brother, man. I mean, what is up? You get to Davos. You don't want to admit that there is a climate change issue that's facing the world, especially Europe. Look at Australia. What's happening over there right now? Brazil. I mean, come on, guys. Why do we always have to be the guys who say, I'm going to take my ball and run? Lee?
This guy, I mean, he has built his whole presidency on denying what is in front of everybody's face to see.
What, the truth?
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, I'm glad you brought up Australia, man, because, I mean, climate change is a big driver of what's happening down there. And, you know, you want the United States to be a leader on this, one, because we're one of the largest consumers of energy in the U.S., we're one of the biggest causers of human-driven climate change, and we got to switch that up. But you need a president who actually would buy into that in order to start it, and that just ain't happened yet.
And who actually believes it, right?
Right, and you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kudzukian Network.
And so, Jen, so Davos is this huge, I guess it's almost like a CBC for white billionaires. Right. And so they go to Switzerland.
CBC?
Yeah, Congressional Black Caucus.
Oh, okay. I was great.
Without the black people. But anyway.
Or the Congress.
I think Jerron. I'm not saying.
Congressional Black Caucus. Scratch the black.
Yeah, scratch the black. So
and the
Congressional, whatever.
And the Congress.
So Jen, you got this huge meeting of thought leaders, billionaires, world leaders, and the biggest thing out there on their plate is they're really not the world economy, but they're talking about this world climate piece and how important it is. Greta Thunberg, the young lady who is, I think she's out of
Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah, she's 17.
And our president is spending time denigrating this young lady who's taken upon herself to be a voice for millennials and young people about what happens when you old guys leave. And I got nothing left. I don't have a rainforest left, Jen.
Absolutely. So what I like about this young lady is that she is taking them to school. And basically, she attended this event along with 20 other activists, young activists. Yeah. And they are really asking these leaders, hey, you know, make climate change first and really, provide some real solutions for it. And, it's interesting how the U.S. U.S. Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin. And, he says, hey, look, once she finishes college, then she can tell us.
She'll get an economics degree. Really?
And so, but again, she's taking them to school without even going to college. And I love it.
Privileged white dude. That's a typical privileged white dude answer. Go ahead, Lee. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say, and one of the things that we're starting to see, and I'm glad that she is speaking up on behalf of this, because 15 years ago that An Inconvenient Truth came out, the Al Gore movie, where he's kind of laying all of that out. Yep. I've studied it for a long time since then, and we're entering into the age of consequences now. Like, there's only so much. Like, we would have to turn over everything in order to try to reverse some of the damage that's done. And even then, we might not be able to. But we're living in the age of consequences, and her generation is the one going to have to deal with it.
Absolutely.
So darn right she's mad.
Well, the incandescent light bulb that President Obama said, hey, look, we're going to go to these new light bulbs that don't more LED, right?
LED.
And so what does our president do? One more executive order to strike down that last executive order.
Yeah, but they kind of suck.
It just keeps doing stuff.
The LED lights kind of suck.
Well, I mean, they're expensive. They're expensive, right?
It's not about the expense. It's about the fact that you put one in your socket and it blinks like you're at a disco and stuff. I'm like, come on.
That's a CFL bulb.
Yeah,
but
we got to get all the technology right. We can't just focus on some of the technology.
Hey, look, speaking of technology and getting things right, Gotti, Rock Nation, Team Rock, they did something this past week that you would think that the NAACP, a lot of these other thought groups out there, ACLU of Mississippi, would sue the state of Mississippi for the treatment of inmates, not only at Parchman, but at other prisons in the state of Mississippi. Well, why did it take a Gotti to do that?
Sometimes I just think that we get distracted, but I can't speak for the NAACP. My good friend who is the president of the NAACP, Mr. Derek Johnson, is from Mississippi, actually. From Detroit, but lives in Jackson. And, one of the things that I don't know what the priorities are right now for the NAACP, but what I do know is that Gotti is doing the right thing to use his voice. A lot of the rap music that you hear today, a lot of people who enjoy that music are people who are living the types of lives that these rappers are describing. And so, they're buying the records, they are attending the concerts, and they are really giving back in a way that they really don't see. They don't get to see people like Yo Gotti. So the fact that he's listening, the fact that Team Rock is listening and saying, hey, look, we're going to support what's happening down in Mississippi is inhumane, and we're going to help our one of our bases speak up. And I think that's, to be applauded for. So.
The brother says right next door. He says right in the neighborhood, Doc, you're a trained attorney on this, Doc. Why now? Why not then? Why not 2 years ago? Why not 10 years ago? This hadn't just started happening yesterday.
But does it matter that why not then now? Because we are where we are right now. We can't relitigate what hasn't been done. But I will tell you, individual inmates are fighting for their rights based on conditions when they're in prison every day.
Yeah.
So that's happened, and that's been happening for forever. I clerked for a federal judge and worked as a defense lawyer for years, and one of the issues that came across regularly were the conditions that men were facing in prison, African American men were facing in prison, transgender or in transition men were facing in prison. So it's been an issue, not just the conditions of the prison itself, but the conditions which they were under as relates to other prisoners. Now, to the NAACP's issue, I know that there are prison branches of the NAACP. I know that they have in time talked about conditions, but I think the focus at some point is more for the NAACP may be more on just the sentencing aspect and people going to prison and the pipeline itself rather than the conditions, although I know that's sort of a sub-issue of them. But the issue as it relates to prison has been something that's going on a long time. And I'm just glad to see that the independent business community that Yo Gotti and that Rock Nation are a part of are actually willing to make the investment to make those conditions better. Because you will find that a lot of times, in a lot of instances, in order for real social change to happen, private sector has to get on board.
Got to get on board.
They have to get involved. They have to be a part of the change.
And let's just be correct here. So I want to make sure that our audience gets the correct information. So the NAACP, the Mississippi State Conference, along with the Southern Poverty Law Center, they've asked the Department of Justice to investigate the state's prison system. So they are there.
No, come on. No,
but
hey, look, let me we'll come back and revisit. We need to get out of here for a quick second, pay a few bills, y'all. Hey, we'll be right back with more Funky Politics and Jen and Doc talking about what these folks do. But anyway, we'll be right back more here on Funky Politics.
Politics is what we do. We just make it funky. Funky fresh. 3.
The power of sisterhood is very important. So check on your strong friend, call your sister friend.
B.
That's what I love about sisterhood. Like, there is no airs. I don't have to put on for you all.
C.
Wherever I am, that's where you all are. So I constantly have pictures. I'm calling, I'm texting, I'm sending stuff. I'm trying to keep connected.
3 Black Chicks on the Kudzukian Network. Kudzukian!
We're back with Funky Politics, powered by the Kudzukian Network. As always, DC, Jen Littlejohn, Lyric Smith of the Tri-State Defender, and the one and only Marcus Doc Ward. And we're sitting here, man, I tell you what, last segment we really got into this Gotti and Team Rock piece with going and trying to do a lot of good work in the state of Mississippi by bringing hopefully bringing the state to court, federal court. Jen, we were really into it. And I know you had another point you wanted to make, and I don't want to cut it off. Let's put a bow on that thing, though. What were you going to say?
Well, before we went off, you were talking about the NAACP.
Sure.
And, I grew up in the NAACP, and I know that organization did a phenomenal job, for me as a youth, in terms of organizing and understanding policy and advocacy. And you asked the question, or you were asking on break, where are they? This whole deal with Parchment, it is a national crisis.
Yes.
Earlier, Doc talked about all politics being local. What's happening there, to me, makes a hell of a difference what's happening in the country.
Right.
And the fact that we have not only NAACP, they're doing their due diligence, I believe, because they do have the Legal Defense Fund, and they have the ability to bring some other people, some other eyes on this and work with the Department of Justice. But now we have Yo Gotti, who's a rapper, who, along with Rock Nation, has said, hey, look, we're going to have a rally. We're going to bring some resources. We're going to elevate this issue. And I think that that's to be applauded. And I think that everybody working in tandem, you can, as we said earlier, walk in, chew gum.
Yes.
And I think we need all players on, working to make sure that these prisoners are living in better conditions and that they're treated with respect in spite of their crime.
And let me make sure, and Liam, I know you wanted to say something, so let me make sure I put a tag on what I said.
Yeah.
I'm upset that there's not more.
Right.
I'm not mad at one or the other, but I'm upset that there's not more. And I know that the NAACP has done work for years and years, for over 100 years. but we got to do more. I keep saying we have got to do more.
Are you saying African Americans have to do more?
Sure we do.
For situations where African Americans are primarily affected.
Sure we do.
Just then say it that way.
Blackers.
Don't say it in code.
Blackers got to do more.
But I also think too. Well, 1 second, Lee. I also think that organizations like the NAACP, who have had a career, a history of mobilizing and organizing, they need to reach back and grab young people and bring them a part of the campaign, of their campaigns. And so I think that's what's missing, is that connection to young people.
Wow. I think the value that I see Yo Gotti and Rock Nation Soup bringing is it's just we're fundamentally dealing with the question of how do we treat people who have committed offenses against society?
Right.
And this isn't a racial issue. I know it disproportionately affects African Americans, but 8 inmates have died at Parchman this year. 3 of them this week. 2 of them were white. Early this week, they were beaten because I guess retaliation or something. They found 1 more today, even as we record, who was hung in his cell. And so even though the tendency is to think, and it is true that prisons are disproportionately populated with African Americans. At the bottom line, our society seems to think when we put somebody in prison, okay, we've thrown them in the garbage. Now we don't care what happens to them. You don't care if you have a $20 garbage can. You try to spend as little money on the garbage can as possible because you're throwing garbage in it. And we just gotta. I think this is going to force us as a nation to really look in the mirror and say, okay, yes, somebody has committed an offense against society, whatever led up to that moment, but how do we treat these people like humans, especially assuming they're going to be reentering? Some of them will be reentering society.
No, most will be, because people don't. I worked at the Division of Corrections in Shelby County at one time, and people think that, I had a coworker, something like, we can't do it like that. These folks you will see in the grocery store again. You will see them at the car wash again. You have to remember that the great majority will be released at some point during their period of incarceration. The great majority. And I'm not talking about 50%. We're talking about up into the 80s and the 90s. Very few people get life, and I mean really what life in life is, okay?
And I'm going to put this bow on it for you. Maybe a start is for all of us to, begin using the word, for instance, instead of inmate. How about human? Why don't we just call them humans incarcerated?
Incarcerated humans.
So I have a question for Doc. Look, Doc.
Yes.
So how is it that these prisoners are in a unit that was closed 10 years ago by the American Civil Liberties Organization? Why are these prisoners sitting there in these inhumane conditions? How is that able to happen?
Well, I'm not the warden of Parchman, and I'm definitely not.
But where's the accountability?
They're looking for one now.
Yeah,
one.
Definitely not an expert on prison conditions. But I will say this though, prisons are just like cities. And they have a warden that's a mayor, and they have a whole staff of people that actually govern all the conditions. Usually when an agency like the ACLU or someone else comes in and can dictate conditions, it's probably pursuant to some type of consent decree or other agreement that they have in lieu of going to court and fighting a lawsuit and having to change conditions under court order and probably pay a lot of people a lot of money or a lot of families a lot of money. So if that wing is open, either the state of Mississippi is violating the consent decree or they have at some point in time received some permission somewhere to go back, revisit, and reopen that wing for prisoners. One of the two things has to have happened. The first one ain't good. So I think that's why we have folks like Yo Gotti, Marvin Mims, named the government name, by the way, and Rock Nation, and other private sector entities that are supporting the effort. And I think that just as much as rap is a conscious art of our soul, the consciousness of our soul is coming forward to prevail on social justice in the least of these thy brethren. And I applaud the effort, and I want to get behind the effort because it's all about all of us. Somebody's got to speak for those people, even people that have been segregated from society because of apparently, the things of their own, things of their own hand.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're listening to Funky Politics right here on the Kudzukian Network. And speaking of those folks who've been dealt a pretty tough hand, the impeachment trial has actually begun. And I mean, the ones who've been dealt a pretty tough hand really are the House managers,
right?
Because they're walking into a system that seemingly has already been predetermined. And it's been voiced that way by none other than the majority leader.
Right.
Says, hey, look, I'm going to be handling this situation in lockstep with the White House.
Right.
Well, we know what the White House wants. We know what Pat Cipollone wants, right?
Right.
We know what Jay Sekulow wants. We know what the president wants.
Right.
But Doc, tell us, how did we get here? How did we get here?
How we got here?
Other than 2016, other than election, how did we get here to where we're now in the well of the Senate defending the Constitution on the grounds that a president did something that he says he didn't do, but according to the facts and evidence that we are privy to?
How we got here?
How we got here.
We had a president that picked up the phone and called up Ukraine and said, go make a press conference about Joe Biden being corrupt. Otherwise, you're not going to get some federally appropriated money for weapons and other items that you need to combat the oppression from Russia. That's how we got here. That's how we got here. And everything else follows from there. A whistleblower, a brave soul, bothered to send the appropriate message and note to the Inspector General of the intelligence and said, you need to watch what's going on here in the Ukraine, at least with the president as relates to Ukraine, and everything else followed from there. And I know everybody wants to see the whistleblower, find out who they are and everything else, but to the extent that you've had witnesses that have testified before Congress, that have corroborated times 8, and you have a president that's unwilling to allow additional witnesses to testify because of his fear that they will corroborate. We have a president that has obstructed the congressional system of hearings, which is why you have him being impeached, and a president that the evidence is clearly shown may have violated not just the law, but some other ethical issues according to his office, which are those high crimes and misdemeanors that you refer to. And let me be clear, you don't have to violate a crime to get impeached. Because a lot of the statutes and crimes we have now for bribery and everything else were not statutes at the time that the Constitution was created. All you have to do is have a breach of your duty as president in a matter that's corrupt to the United States. And that's enough to get you on the impeachment realm. And the president here has done that. And that's how we got here.
Well, Jen, I want to get you in here because there's no secret. You are state director.
Let me say this though.
Go ahead.
The president's alleged to have done that.
Alleged.
I'm going to keep it.
There's no secret. You are helping Elizabeth Warren and her campaign to become the next president of the United States, or at least to win the Democratic primary, and then to go on, and of course, and vanquish the sitting president. Senator Warren, and I'm sure you all have a lot of talking points that are coming out of your office. What's her take on what will these proceedings do in terms of the divisiveness of the country? Have y'all talked about that to any major respect?
So one thing I will say, and you know this, I can't speak on behalf of the campaign,
well, that's right.
But what I will say is that she is, has said this explicitly, that she is going to fulfill her duty, which is to sit and listen and to vote in the interest of the American people. And I think the evidence is clear. Doc really clearly laid it out. And just like Hakeem Jeffries even laid it out, I don't know if you all saw that the other day.
If you don't know, now you know.
If you don't know, now you know. And I think that,
too, by the way,
that once you kind of, when you look at the issues placed before us, it's really clear that he committed a crime and that he, really, he was wrong, and I just don't know how any senator that has been sitting in that room and listening to the arguments of the Democratic Party, I don't know how anyone could vote otherwise.
Lee,
I agree. This is what I've been waiting for.
And before you preface that,
okay,
understand this is the first time that I think in the history of the United States Senate that the media has been corralled or been put in a pen and restricted to be able to get access to the Senate, to the members of the Senate, right? And so this is unprecedented to some respect, right? Lee, as a journalist, I'd like to know your thought on that, number one, before we get out of here for break.
It's like I said, I've been excited or anticipating this moment where the House would get to make its case to the American people and obviously to the Senate and lay out all of these facts. And I've been watching, I haven't watched the whole 8-hour stretch, but I've been watching strategic moments where they're making stuff, they're playing clips of stuff he said out by the helicopter, and it just falls right in line with the story they're telling. And I agree with you, Jen, that, and what I've been anticipating is whether or not, when the Senate is forced to hear this in front of, and the American people's watching them hear this,
right,
that it'll put them in a spot where they would have to, in order to vote against witnesses for one, and then maybe against removal, would have to require them to suspend their disbelief. Suspend their belief that what their eyes are telling them. And I just don't see that
So
happen.
don't believe your lying eyes is what
But
you're
you
telling me?
have to look at the long game here, because now we've gotten to the issue where we've appointed House managers.
Hold that thought. Let's. I want to talk about the long game. I want to talk about the House managers. I want to talk about the role of the person who's presiding over this court of such. Right. So hold on just a minute. We'll be right back with more Funky Politics right here on the Kudzukian Network.
The whole funk, because we're so funkified. Nothing but the funk.
Riffin' on jazz.
I think I know a lot about jazz.
It's only what you've been doing the last 30-some years.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
A voice that can make you laugh and make you cry.
Good jazz, you don't have to worry about what they're talking about. But when they pick up those instruments, we all speak the same language. And don't you know you went in the kitchen and come back with a big bowl of salad?
Riffin' on jazz on the Kudzukian Network.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kudzukian Network. We are always here, always ready. We're always right. We're always funky.
Always funky.
Well, especially you.
We the people.
We the people's people.
We the people.
Hey, look.
Soul Searchers. What you know about that?
Look, I love the Soul Searchers, man. What are you talking about? Hey, look. Right now, Jen, Lee Eric, Doc, it's that time of day. The stank of the union.
A combination
which
of
is a reoccurring theme on this show, folks, that tells us about how stanky this mess really is.
Stank.
It's so stanky.
I smell something.
Oh, well,
it's stanky.
I didn't put the deodorant I normally put on. I changed deodorants.
That's some stanky deodorant.
Yeah, I'll change back.
The funk of our Mother Earth.
The funk of our Mother Earth.
Funk of a Mother Earth.
That sounds like a brand.
Is emanating out of Washington, D.C. right now.
Funk of Mother Earth.
On the Senate side, where you have a trial of sorts. Not a trial of sorts with evidence. Well, actually, it's some evidence, right?
Yeah, well, right now there is some, and I will say this, that there may be even more, because there was a vote taken by the Senate to hear evidence and to hear witnesses. Of course, the Republicans are voting on the party lines, and Democrats are voting on party lines too.
53-47.
But there are more Republicans than there are Democrats.
Right.
And since you only need 51,
yeah, that's right.
Their motions are going to carry.
Sure.
But what they have agreed to do by their set of rules, and remember, in an impeachment trial, the Senate sets the rules. There are no rules already written for impeachment trials.
This is not a regular trial, right? Not a regular criminal trial.
The Senate sets the rules. There are no rules of evidence and anything like that. The Senate sets the rules based on their own votes when they are in session prior to the beginning of the proceedings, and the vote is a majority vote. Now, what they have done, I will say this, they've made one concession. Instead of just voting down the issue of hearing witnesses and reviewing documents, they've agreed to table the amendment to hear.
So that's what those votes were the other day. Those four votes.
Right.
Not to necessarily not hear evidence, not to hear witness, but not to hear it right now.
Well, what they agreed was that things that they would vote down, they would table them. So the Republicans have basically allowed themselves to sort of move as the people seem to move, as public opinion seems to move. So nothing would be off the table. They would just put the motions, the amendments rather, that the minority was offering on the table. So if John Bolton, say for instance, becomes something that everybody wants to do, which it appears from the opinion polls that 70-something% of the people want to hear him, then all of a sudden they can bring the motion back and vote on it as they see fit. So they're trying to preserve themselves. And I kind of went through before, it seems as if what the Democrats' strategy is to try to make it clear that Republicans do not really want to hear the truth of this matter. They just simply want to move on with it. They just simply want to just talk about it later. And everything that they've been doing is demonstrating the lack of the Republican members of the Senate to actually take this matter seriously.
Or to stand up against the president.
And take this matter seriously.
Right.
So what they have in effect done is not just proven that, but they're taking the issue of whether or not the Senate should remain majority Republican to the ballot box. Remember, there are about 33
Total 35.
35 seats that are open this election, mostly in Republican states.
Right. 33.
So you have an opportunity, or Democrats have an opportunity to change the landscape. So even if the president is not impeached with a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, he's about as gilded as you can be.
Lee, do you think they are afraid of this president? And is this the most powerful president we've had? Now, understand what I'm asking. Is this the most powerful president we've ever had?
Is that question for everybody?
Yeah, because number one, this guy controls not necessarily people, but he controls the narrative in terms of a media. He has such a we've not had the only one we've ever had was Barack Obama, right? Yep. That had this type. Bill Clinton, to some respect, but Barack Obama and this president right here, as negative as it is, this guy has a way with media that just blows your mind, Jen.
Well, look, I'm not going to give him that much credit.
Oh, you're not?
And here's where I'm going with this. Oh, God. I think all of what we're seeing now is the fruit of a seed that was planted back in 2008 when President Obama was elected.
Sure.
That was when we really began to see the birth of the Tea Party movement, which is, has obviously there are some racist components to that. But what happened was we started to see more people with those type of sensibilities beginning to run for election. That's why we saw so many Tea Party people in both the House and the Senate. And so are they representing the constituency that got them elected?
Sure.
Yes, sure. But I do think that the demographics and the opinion is shifting. And I was going to, we can come back to this, but I was going to ask you all, because I had been watching. I haven't watched all 8 hours for 2 days in a row yet. But just what I've seen, I've been thoroughly, I feel like, I don't know that the House needs to bring witnesses. Obviously, you want an avalanche you want an avalanche of evidence.
That's what you want.
But I'm just saying, given what they've already presented, is a very compelling narrative.
Jen, do you need to see more?
Of course, I want to hear from Jim Bolton.
John
Bolton. I want to hear from him.
Me too,
I really do, and I want to hear from some other people as well.
Right.
But I go back to this: will we be able to have 4 senators who will defect?
Well, you're listening to Funky Politics. We'd like them to call in or send us an email or whatever. Give us a call here at 901-FUNKY. We'll take your call and see what's going on.
We got 5 numbers.
FUNKEEE.
Oh,
I'm gonna have a line put in tomorrow. Funky.
Okay.
But seriously though, Jen, I think you say, can you get 4?
Can we get 4
to come across? Right?
Can we get 4? I think the evidence is compelling enough. But do these senators do they have the
cojones?
Yeah.
Call it what it is. Do they have the nuts?
Yeah. To actually look at the case and make a decision, a good decision. You know what I'm saying? And that's what baffles me when I'm watching the case, and I haven't been able to watch all of it because I can't stomach it. I'm sitting there, I'm sitting at home, and I'm listening to the arguments, the case, before, because now the Democrats are kind of laying it out. But early on, when they were laying out the case, and I heard both sides, and the Republicans, it made my stomach turn.
Wow.
That the evidence is so clear, and we're not getting anywhere. Just split party lines. But I'm looking for the 4, Doc, Lee, DC. I'm looking for the 4 people.
I thought there was going to be 4.
I think we will get 4
once the case is laid out.
Yeah, who will want to hear witnesses? I think probably those in vulnerable
Before
states.
You say one word, I want to ask you a question as a lawyer, trained attorney. I want to ask you this.
Okay.
I'm John Bolton. Okay. I get down there. You subpoena me. I come. I know the president doesn't want me to come, right? I come, and then I say, you know what? I plead the 5th. Then what happens?
I don't think he's going to plead the 5th.
Why wouldn't he?
Because there's nothing that's going to come out of his testimony that's going to incriminate him. Remember, the 5th is the right not to testify for fear of self-incrimination.
Sure.
And I don't think that there's anything that we've been told to this point. That we've been told to this point where that John Bolton has been involved in that would incriminate him, and knowing and just seeing him in the way that he's operated over the years.
Mick Mulvaney
either.
No. Oh, God.
I don't think there's anything.
I think Mick has to say, I'm pleading the 5th.
He made a statement that business is done the way that it was done, which is the basis of the impeachment, that we always shake down leaders. He said that, but he said that as that's a practice, but he never said he participated in it. So I don't think either one of them really have Fifth Amendment issues. John Bolton obviously is saving up and doing all this because he wants to write a book, so they say.
No, he's already got a book.
Or he's got one out. He wants to talk about it even more and sell the book. But I think that the issue is this, is that we have to remember this. No matter, and I want to say this for everyone out here who calls themselves a Democrat or leans to the left or is marked to the left.
Make it plain for them now. Make it plain.
The case has to be made not for Democrats. Yeah. The case has to be made for Republicans.
And independents.
Right, I believe that.
And there are people out here that don't look like us, that don't vote like us, that don't think like us because they've not been acquainted with what we've been acquainted with. It's not because they're inferior. It's not been acquainted with what we've been acquainted with.
Right, I believe that.
That believe that the president has done wrong, but the wrong that he's done is not worth upsetting the country for to remove him. Because remember, if this president is removed,
yes,
he will be the first president in American history, in America's 250-year almost history, that has been removed from office because of his actions while being in office. And we have to be careful, and this is the way a lot of independents think. You have to be careful about the precedent, because just as sure as the sun shines, if Donald Trump walks out that door being removed, there will be a president that you like, that I like, that other people like, that's of a different type, that does different things, that Republicans will be looking for the precedent, with already established precedent, looking for the basis to remove that president based on what happened with the president that they adored being Donald Trump. I'm just telling you.
Sounds like you're advocating that they not go through with this.
Well, no,
like
not at all.
That they do not convict him. That's what it sounds like to me.
Not at all. But what I'm saying is this. If the decision is made to remove him, make sure that decision is clear and make sure that everything that is laid out is clear. One of the problems that the Democrats have is that there was an opportunity for them to go and use the court system, the federal court system, for all to protest and to file lawsuits and file injunctions against the fact that the president was not allowing witnesses to testify and was not allowing certain documents to come in. They could have used the court system and probably would have prevailed, but they opted not to do that. Now, their argument is this. Their argument is that the charges were of such an imminent nature, being that the election is coming up, and the fraudulent activities are already occurring, they did not want to go through the timetable that the courts would ordinarily take them through.
Right.
But when you have Nancy Pelosi holding on to the articles for how many weeks?
About 30 days.
It kind of nullifies that argument. So that's a mountain that they have to climb. I'm not saying they can't climb it, but it's one of those mountains they have to climb. And you can't abandon your common sense when you're dealing with this. So whatever appeal has to be made, get all the evidence out. We want to see it all. Because it's not about convincing you.
Right.
It's about convincing those independents and those Republicans.
And you know what I will say?
And, of course, the American people.
You know,
well, the American people are Republicans.
The president was on the news the other day saying, hey, look, we have all the evidence. They don't have anything. We have all the information. Sure. They don't have anything. And so his gall, his privilege.
He's just goading.
His power.
Well, you're freaking goading these people.
It's disgusting.
But that's why you have the plan B, though. That's why there's the plan B. Right. Because if you see the senators out here ignoring what is obvious and refusing to hear what is obvious, then all of a sudden that makes that voter say, do I want to have this person representing me? So there's a couple of end games going on here. And it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out.
I was just going to say that one of the phrases that comes to mind is, instead of thinking about what might happen if you do something, think about what will happen if you don't.
Right.
And I'm thinking about the precedent we set of executive power if the Senate does not remove the president from office.
And Dr. King said the time is always right to do what is right.
I think what's happening, we'll get out here and we're going to go to another segment, but I think what you got here is you got a situation where you've got a Senate and you've got a House that if they do not vote to convict, they will be neutered for years to come. And on that note, we'll be right back with more Funky Politics right here on the Kudzukian Network.
The whole funk.
I ain't scared of you, mother.
Nothing but the funk.
Who you with? Yeah. Who you with? Yeah. Who you with? Yeah. Who you with? Yeah. I'm with my clique. I'm with my clique.
Well, I know where 3 ain't right now. 3 are not in Iowa. We got 3 senators because of the impeachment process that's going on right now, which is the most important thing. Let's make sure that people understand that.
What?
That's the most important piece of what government is all about going on right now.
Yeah.
So the Iowa caucuses, which number 1, they shouldn't be. Why is Iowa number 1 anyway? It's caucuses. I could care less about that.
Well, you can't change that.
Yeah, you can't change history right now. We can fight that argument in 4 more years? But I think people have tried to fight that argument for years. But anyway.
But I will say this though, for those for people that don't believe that there's any African American importance to the state of Iowa. Iowa State is the founding university for the National Bar Association.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I know a lot
3% black people in the state of Iowa. 3% colored people.
That's okay.
I mean, I'm talking about black.
That's okay. And if you can, if 3% and you can make a movement like that, then all of a sudden your prominence comes up. And don't forget this too. Now, Iowa did choose Barack Obama in the caucus.
That's
and
right.
They did set him off on his career. That's what gave him the legitimacy to continue through the primaries.
Got a good friend of mine.
So I don't want to hear all that.
Sarah just went up there. Her and a bunch of other education folks who are about trying to support candidates who stand for strong education, especially with our underserved children.
Right.
And she said it wasn't pretty. I'm not going to say the last name, but she said it wasn't pretty. It wasn't treated right. I mean, come on. This is about our elite Democrat friends in the state of Iowa. So you know what? Yeah, you can see me.
Wow.
Iowa.
Well, no, I was, the Iowa caucus is now on February 3rd, so we're not far away from all. And
the Super Bowl.
And the impeachment hearings are underway, and like you said, that has taken Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Amy Klobuchar off of the trail.
Sure it has.
And I'm just wondering, like, on a campaign trail, like if the candidate, okay, you got surrogates, you got a lot of money flowing around, they can get people out there knocking doors, but if the candidate isn't boots on the ground, doing events, shaking hands, I don't know, eating corn dogs at the cafe or whatever, if the candidate's not doing that, does that create an opening, you think, for some of the other, candidates who are still?
Not so much, Lee, because they do have teams who are on the ground, who've been on the ground for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think so much. I think that the candidates have done their fair share of being there, but everybody knows that they have a duty right now to serve, and that's the impeachment case. So I think that's top of mind for them. But for those people who are on the ground, who have been working and who knocking on doors, phone banking, meeting people, I think that's valid, and that the voters will take that into consideration.
I'd like to meet an average Iowa voter who's going to go to the caucus and get their opinion on what they really think. What they really think about this race coming up in 2020. Who are you with, so to speak? Is it one of the 3 that we're named as sitting in the well of the Senate right now in judgment of 45, or is it Tom Steyer? Is it a Andrew Yang? Is it some of these other folks out there? I think Tulsi Gabbard. Did she finally go in?
No, I'm not.
Is she still hanging in? Well, she's actually still hanging in, right?
Yeah.
So she's not officially said I'm out yet, right?
Right.
But Marianne Williamson is out. Cory Booker is out. Of course, our friend Kamala's out. I called it early on, and I was really surprised that her gas tank wasn't full enough to take her a little bit further. But I predicted that she wouldn't make it out of the year 19, and she didn't. But I was really surprised by that.
So the ground game is critical, and if you don't have money to run an effective ground game, you're out.
Right. But she came out so strong, though, Jen.
Yeah.
I mean, that first month or so, she'd raised some pretty good money, right? But I imagine she just blew through a lot of cash, right? She blew through a lot of cash.
She was a one-event candidate, and on one event can be traced back to the first debate. And there was nothing that came, nothing. And I'm not saying this to say anything about her yay or nay, because I actually had a lot of support for her, and I actually thought a lot of her in that role, even though I didn't think her heart was in it.
I think she's a strong number 2.
But I think she's better as Attorney General, to be honest with you. But I think that in her case, as Jen said, she didn't have the ground game, and I think there are a lot of people, particularly African Americans, who she really needed to have that strong endorsement from, that could not believe in her campaign, that tried to felt like I did, that her heart wasn't in it, and it just followed. But I want to talk about something else, though, because we don't need to litigate what's in the past is in the past. Good luck to Kamala Harris. Good luck to Marianne Williamson. Good luck to Cory Booker. Good luck to Julian Castro and all those who have
forget about Julian.
Who availed themselves and now move on.
Yeah.
Poll came out.
Yeah.
And essentially every major candidate is leading Donald Trump right now. If the election were held today, between 5 or 6 of the Democratic candidates, that being Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Michael Bloomberg, Amy Klobuchar, and Pete Buttigieg.
Deval Patrick too?
Not Deval Patrick.
Okay, gotcha.
But at least those.
Not Tulsi?
Not Tulsi.
Okay.
But all of those would
God.
prevail over Donald Trump. Okay,
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kudzukian Network, too. By the way,
all of them, and at least
Funky Politics would beat Donald Trump right now.
Right now, Funky Politics, the brand would beat Donald Trump right now. But all of those would beat Donald Trump. So let's talk about where we are right now with candidates. The Monmouth poll that came out just recently has Joe Biden at 30%. Mm-hmm. Has, I think, Bernie Sanders somewhere around 23%. Elizabeth Warren is 3rd, and all of a sudden Mike Bloomberg is breaking into the double digits of percentages now. And this is a candidate that does not come to debates because he funds his own campaign, so he doesn't meet the Democratic criteria. Candidate that came into the race late.
Well, he's
from New York,
and he's spinning out the wazoo
and
too.
Nothing that really resonates really in the South and in the West per se, but he already is at 9% of the vote.
Well, and Bloomberg has been spending spending
a lot of money,
trying to make sure. I mean, we've seen the commercials. He's spending his money to get Donald Trump out of office. I've seen reporting that Mike Bloomberg has paid his staff, all of his staff, all the way through November. Like, he's promised you a salary if you're working on his campaign, regardless of whether he gets the nomination or not.
He's in it through the end.
Right. And when you think about having pockets that deep, okay, fine. I like the idea of having a war chest to go into a campaign with. But there is a part of me that is kind of itchy about a billionaire having, unlimited resources to dump into an election to influence politics.
Absolutely.
Even if it is against the guy that I don't think should be president.
But how much of his own money? Does anybody know how much?
It was over $125 million.
That Donald Trump spent of his own money.
Oh,
none. Absolutely $0.
He would have to.
Well, I think he got some money from the foundation.
But a lot of his isn't necessarily liquid though.
Yeah.
He's not.
He's not.
You have Mike Bloomberg coming in, spending the money to get his name out and get the word out. Now he could have fallen flat. I mean, Tom Steyer makes debates barely, but he's been out forever. He's had commercials out forever. He still is not above Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg is now amongst Democrats. He's 4th.
Well,
he's 4th. He's at 9%.
When you are spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
In all fairness, Mike Bloomberg has shown up on the presidential ballot once before. He has been there before. So he's been a candidate. This isn't anybody that just came to the – Tom Steyer just came to the game. He just came to the game.
Tom Steyer had some ads.
But how long ago was Mike Bloomberg on the ballot?
We're talking about what
when Barack Obama was running, wasn't it?
Sure, yeah.
So wait a minute. So then if you're 21 years old right now, you were only 13 when he was on about. You weren't thinking about him.
We're not talking about 21-year-old people who are making a difference in this man's campaign right now, though. Either
I don't know. There's a lot of young people that are galvanized.
Sure, they are. But what I'm saying,
young people.
That means that those people do not believe in the candidate. I would like to think that the average millennial will probably venture toward more of a Bernie and an Elizabeth Warren than they would necessarily a Joe Biden.
But here's
not a Mike Bloomberg.
But here's the other part that I'm looking at. Here's the other part that I'm looking at, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because in that same poll, while he's coming up dramatically, Elizabeth Warren lost 3 points. So he's eating somebody's lead up. Now, I think he's taking probably some of the other candidates that have left the race, but now he's eating into the contenders. This week of this poll, it was Elizabeth Warren. It won't always be Elizabeth Warren. Sometimes it'll be Bernie Sanders. Right. But he's eating up other candidates' leads and percentages now. He's slowly coming into prominence.
He's paying for his own marketing.
Okay.
If he had to get on the same stage with those same presidential candidates, could he hold his own?
I doubt it very seriously.
And I don't think he could, Jim.
But and now you're playing to my next point.
He has a disadvantage. He gets to be the marketing campaign,
and he doesn't have to go.
He doesn't
have to debate a soul.
Nobody.
He doesn't have to show up publicly with anyone. Nobody. He can just sit out here on the island, pay for his own campaign,
and buy people.
And the next thing you know, he's going to have 28% of the vote.
Well,
so how do you feel about that? I just want to know.
Yeah, that's where I am, man. I'm like, and again, even if it's somebody, and I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to Mike Bloomberg, so I don't know a whole lot of his policies. Of course, I'm familiar with stop and frisk and all of that. But
drop crime 48% in New York.
Yeah,
it worked.
And you got some cities right now that have some pretty serious crime problems.
But I mean, we have
already seen, how big money in American politics can, push the scale. And I just, even if it is to get Donald Trump out of office, this is making me a little queasy with him. That's all I'm saying.
But if you notice,
and I think he's competent. I think he could probably do a decent job as president.
Same Monmouth poll though before, and I want you to comment on this.
Okay.
Of the leads that Donald Trump has over the candidates, he is second. Now he's fourth in the overall Democrat, but he's second, which means now that pulls in people that don't register Democrat. Joe Biden is number one, but Bloomberg is number two.
Fascinating.
So what you're seeing is a candidate that's emerging outside of the mainstream. And my question is this real or is this funky? Well,
it is funky. It's Memorex. When you pull him inside the mainstream, I'm telling you.
But he doesn't have to come inside the mainstream.
He's got to eventually.
When?
He will be eaten up. He will be eaten up like a little lamb to a bear.
When is he going to? When is he going to have to ever avail himself?
He's going to have to face some voter at some caucus, at some primary, somewhere.
Why?
That's just what's got to happen.
When's he going to debate?
You mean to me he's just going to run for president?
So he's entering the fifth primary. So he's skipping the first four.
Right.
So he's going to have to, meet some voters and give his stance. But one of the things that I don't like what he's doing, he is coming to the black community and buying key votes. And it's interesting how people are just kind of like open to that. And allowed him.
Is he the only one?
No, he's not the only one. But he's skipping the democratic process, and that's not fair.
He's allowed to bypass. That's my point. He's allowed to bypass it. I know we say he's going to come in and debate sometime, but as long as the DNC has the rules that it has, he never has to show up for a debate. And as long as he continues to gain numbers and gain opportunity, not just from Democrats, from independents as well, he can bypass everything, and you may find out he's ending up being the Democratic nominee.
No, he'll show up to a primary. He's got to show up to a primary. And if it's the fifth one will be the determinant for him. Trust
debate
me.
or a primary?
What?
And I was going to say this.
He's going to have to go to a primary at some point. He's got to go to a primary.
He doesn't have to debate anyone.
Right. I don't care, but he's got to show up to a primary.
His numbers he has right now are without a primary. He's got numbers now.
No, those are false numbers. That's a false narrative. I think you're seeing.
Somebody views.
Okay.
And what I would say is that what I do appreciate that he is doing is he's already running a national campaign, because what we're seeing is the Democrats obviously are still in primary mode and they're running against each other. He is very clearly putting his money out there. I am running against Donald Trump, and I'm grateful to see somebody kind of putting their money on that part of the fight, because you don't want to wait until after we have a candidate
I'm sorry.
to do it.
That's what the primary is for.
But he's letting everybody cancel each other out. That's what's happening. Everybody else is beating each other to death, punch drunk. Exactly. And he'll just come along.
He'll come in. He'll vanquish the presumed winner of the Democratic primary, because they've been beating the hell out of each other the right way. He's doing it the wrong way.
He's doing it the wrong way.
Okay? That's all I got to say. Hey, look, we'll be right back with more Funky Politics. We're going to close this thing up. Doc got a lot to say. I'm going to see what you got to say. Doc's got a new show coming up. We'll talk about that later on. But anyway, we'll be right back with more Funky Politics powered by the Kudzukian Network.
My great-great-grandfather, one of the first black politicians in Mississippi. He ran for the border. We're gonna bump you right on up.
Funky Politics, where just like the elements we believe, if there's anything you want to do in life, you need devotion. Can I get a right on, Cass?
Right on.
There you go.
Praise the Lord.
Always celebrate. Always celebrate Earth, Wind & Fire. Maurice White, Chicago-born, Memphis-made, making wonderful music with a social conscience, which is what this nation needs right now. Because we're at a point where we've got to, first of all, we've got to heal. And then we've got to rebuild. No matter who the leader is, no matter what the plan is, we got to heal and we've got to rebuild. Because I'm going to tell you something. A few years ago, I used to have several debates with Democrats, with Republicans, with all types of individuals with all types of beliefs. And it was all good, because at the end of the day, we understood that we had lives, we had careers, we had children, we had families, we had things that we were concerned about that were common denominators of the success of America. And no matter how we felt about politics, we still understood that the human nature was to love and to give. And we focused on that as we deliberated. But now, we are at a position where not only do we dislike what we believe, we are starting to dislike. We have started. We've gone past the point where we not just dislike each other.
We hate each other.
We hate each other. Yeah. We called each other names. as if we're young kids.
We kill each other.
We kill each other. We start problems with each other because we feel like we don't like each other. And America, the free country that it is, with all the freedoms of speech and all the other freedoms, whatever they may be, we've got to start thinking in a straight line. There's a thing, and I'm telling you, the community where African Americans say school shooting, that ain't my problem. That's white folks with guns. They need to fix it. But African Americans have a gun problem too.
Yeah.
And we got to fix that. The problems that we have that we say belong to the other culture or the other race or the other whatever, we have the same problems too in our race, no matter what they are. And even if you don't, it's evil to contemplate that something's not your problem because it's happening on the other side of the fence. So if you live in the suburbs and a child gets killed in the hood, that's just as much your problem as it is theirs.
Sure.
You should weep for those children. You should cry for those children. And you, with your resources and your central air and all your other amenities in your home, should be fighting and sponsoring a solution. And if you don't know, as Hakeem Jeffrey says, now you know. And if you don't know how to do it, that's what we're here for.
Ask somebody.
Funky Politics. That's right. Ask somebody. Ask somebody or watch somebody.
Jen.
And that's all I got to say.
Jen, with what has occurred this week, with what we've seen last week, what we've seen locally.
In our own city.
The killing of small children is one of the most heinous things that you can do.
Yeah.
Everyone at this table is a parent. It brings tears to my freaking eyes to understand, to even think that somebody could kill a child and somebody shot in your house and you don't know enough to tell the police. You don't have enough cojones to say, look, Lee Eric did it. I did something to Lee Eric, but Lee Eric, this is retribution. That's got to be what it is. Nobody just shoots randomly in people's houses. They just don't do it. And it pisses me off to no end, Jim. Lee, pisses me off.
Yeah, so sad to hear about that. That was, for the listener that doesn't know, here in Memphis, it's been big news here. A double homicide where 2 children were gunned down. And it's enough to make you want to cry if you're not crying already. But my thought is, and I just kind of want to piggyback on something you said, Doc. To get through where we're going next in our society, we're going to have to go together. The saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We're going to have to go together.
Yeah.
And I want to just kind of stop on this point, which is, I don't believe that America is as divided as the media tells us. I think for the most part, if any of us go to a grocery store after we get off the mic here, there'll be conservative people in there, liberals, there'll be some racists in there'll be some non-racists, there'll be LGBTQ people. And all people really want to do is get their coffee and their veggies and their kombucha or whatever and get in line. And maybe you'll say hello to the person in front of you and go home. I think the truth of our society is most people get along most of the time. We just got to turn up the volume on that.
Jen?
Yeah, so this week we celebrated Dr. King's birthday, and so in day of service for those who celebrated it on January 20th. And one of the things that I want to just make sure that our listeners and people who are our fans and out there, just to really draw on the things that Dr. King stood for in terms of justice and equity and equality. Those are things that we as citizens have to really pay attention to. You can no longer sit on the couch and disconnect from what's happening in our society, whether it's with our children, our schools, crime, policy, politics. You have to engage, you have to get involved. What that looks like for you, I'm not sure, but you have to do something. And I think that, you know, a lot of people say with day of service, they can just do anything. I don't think that you can just do anything, but you must do something that aligns with the things that are happening in society. So that's for me. My challenge is for you to unlock, if you've been, wondering about something that's been happening, or if you want a solution, put a solution forth to crime and violence in your community, or even with tutoring and mentoring, whatever the case may be. Think about that structure, that infrastructure, what that looks like. Think about your time and be prescriptive in how you devote your time and how you provide a solution.
Micah 6:8 says, the Lord only requires us to live justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. Doesn't say anything about a job, a school, or anything else. Those 3 things are all that matters. And the only 3 things that matters on this show is that you keep it real,
keep it right,
and keep it funky.
And that's all we require. So until next time you do that, and we'll get back to you. Y'all be good now.
Funky Politics, recorded at Kudzukian Studios, directed, produced, and distributed by Kudzukian.